50. Yeah, that's right. 50 times United lost the ball in their own half up against Newcastle. How United play out from the back has been a glaring issue even before Amorim arrived. Ten Hag couldn't solve the puzzle, and Amorim hasn't yet either. We thought signing Onana, the ball-playing goalkeeper, would solve all our problems. How wrong were we? In this video, I'm going to focus more on the tactics that Amorim is using. I'm fully aware that the personnel of this squad right now, the technical levels, just not there to be able to efficiently play out from the back every time. We do desperately lack those solution finders from the back. Martinez being out is a major one. Ahmad as well. Missing those types of profile from this squad is huge now in how we're going to be able to play. Same in the midfield. Currently, relying on Casemiro and Ugarte, they're just not good enough to be able to consistently play out from the back. So I'm fully aware of that. But that being said, tactically, I still think there are huge flaws in how Amorim sets up his players. So the players that are currently available aren't being given the best platform in being able to play. And I know everyone goes nuts when you start to criticise Amorim. They talk about how players couldn't do it in Ten Hag's system, so how do you expect them to do it now? But I still think there are sort of ways in which Amorim can get the most out of these players. It doesn't mean, obviously, that I'm on Amorim's back and I don't think his game model's good. It's not that. But I saw flaws in Ten Hag's system, and I'm seeing certain ones in Amorim's game as well. So I'm just here to point them out. And we've seen it for months. The centre-back pushing up into midfield, creating in theory that sort of box midfield that certain teams try and use. In theory, you're having obviously a bit of a midfield overload in there because of it. But pushing a centre-back in there, there's very, very few centre-backs in world football that are going to be comfortable receiving with their back to the opposition right in the middle, sort of just in front of their own box. Let alone, obviously, relying on the likes of Lindelof, Maguire and De Ligt to do that job.
You want too much.
Even at Sporting, we saw Amorim do a very similar thing, and it could get very easily manipulated. Obviously, going to happen less often than, obviously, Portuguese League. You're not going to get tested as much. But he is being found out a little bit in the Premier League right now. He's not stuck to this system, though. I've seen him use different ways of sort of pushing the goalkeeper a little bit more further forward, getting one of the wide centre-backs to play essentially like a full-back. So you're having a little bit more options in there. You're not getting stuck in the wide areas quite as much. But recently in the Premier League, he has been very rigid in the system that he's using, and I don't quite like it. Tuchel's Chelsea had similar issues in the way that they got stuck trying to play out from the back, and they would get forced out wide and forced to kick it long, more out of hope than anything else. But the difference with that Chelsea team, they did have more dual winners higher up the pitch. The likes of Havertz playing in those number 10 positions, they're more likely to win you the ball if you kick it up to them than the likes of Garnacho or Fernandes. It's just as simple as that. So another reason in terms of personnel, how United don't quite have it at the minute. The only players they've got further forward that can win you the ball is going to be Xerxes or Højlund. But we've seen recently them struggling when they come up against very physical centre-backs. Xerxes did struggle a little bit up against Dan Burn when the ball was kicked long up against Newcastle.
What the size of that thing?
And in that Newcastle game, Newcastle were very aggressive in that press. Happy to go man-to-man, and it caused United all sorts of problems. Gonna go over some game slides here and talk about how Amorim's system isn't quite getting the best out of these players. You can see Yoro having the ball, forced to go back to Bayındır. This is a classic example of what's happened to United all season long. You can see Lindelof pushed into midfield alongside Ugarte, but they get easily marked out of the game. Ball gets forced out wide. Mazraoui, you can see it. Very, very limited options. You've got Dalot trying to provide something, but look how closely he's being marked. So Mazraoui, pressured, forced to kick it long. Ball ends up going up to Garnacho. He's up against a Newcastle centre-back. Just not going to win that duel very often. And you can see the Newcastle players in a dangerous position to receive the ball. It ends up going to Isak. Very dangerous opportunity for Newcastle in that instance. Kind of another example a little bit later on. Yoro receives the ball. You can see a few seconds later how United just don't get the options around him, and it's just far too easy for the opposition to get at us. Far too much time is taken on the ball, so it ends up just going back to Lindelof, back to the goalkeeper. This time around, Lindelof does an invert again. The Newcastle player doesn't quite cut off that pass as they normally would, so Bayındır can find Lindelof in this instance. But again, goes out wide to Dalot. He's pushed right back again towards his own box. So now everyone else is marked out of the game. Dalot again is forced to kick it long, up to Xerxes, more out of hope than anything else. So you can see how this system, in pushing that centre-back up, we're just not finding players in that midfield area. So often it ends up we're forced out wide, forced to kick it long. Again, a little bit later on, another instance where Yoro being in that left centre-back spot. I love Yoro. I think he's going to be a top class talent. But in terms of having him or Martinez out there, there's clear what Martinez excels in. Yoro hasn't quite got that just yet. Not saying he's not going to find it, but he's struggling a little bit in terms of progression at the minute. So ball ends up going back to the goalkeeper. Goalkeeper has no options through the middle. Forced to pass it back out to Yoro. Ball ends up going back to Binder, just passing it back and forth for the sake of it most of the time. This one, though, is an example of where a solution finder comes into play. Binder plays a lovely pass here. Instead of just going to Mazraoui, playing the simple ball for him to get pressured, he plays a little bit of a dink pass out to Dalot. Now Dalot, a big reason why he's playing so many games for Ten Hag, for Amorim, is because he is one of these solution finders. So he can get you with a nice touch, as I've just shown you, nice touch of his chest, round the corner, past Livramento. Dalot is one of those solution finders. That's why he plays so many games. Playing out from the back, you need these type of players. Obviously, Dalot, super frustrating. Defensively, in this game, he had moments where he just completely loses his head. I think Livramento it was for Newcastle's second goal. Skins past him as if he's not there. So Dalot has flaws. But that's one of the reasons I think that Ten Hag and Amorim play him so often is because he is one of these solution finders. And with Martinez, Ahmad out, United just lack these massively at the minute. And a couple of graphs now highlighting how bad it is for United trying to play out from the back at the minute. And this one, in terms of obviously losing the ball in dangerous zones, United did it 50 times up against Newcastle. Only Crystal Palace have done it more than United since Amorim really took charge. So you can see how bad it has been for United trying to play out and how often we do lose the ball in these dangerous positions. United's build-up completion is not too bad, but if you're going to be losing the ball that many times in dangerous areas, you can see it with Palace, United, Spurs. That's where the danger really does come from, and it's something United have struggled with. Again, this stat, I've talked about personnel as well. Obviously, it's not just Amorim's problem. Ugarte, I've been critical of him. He's not a solution finder. He's a midfielder in there, runs about, causes a few fouls, tackles a few people, great. But in terms of on-the-ball stuff, he's nowhere near good enough. For 50 million, I can't believe he's who United went for. You look at Sanderberg, Amadou Onana, people who said, obviously fans said that they weren't good enough for United. But look at their progression efficiency. Look how high up they are. I would dare to say that they would do a lot better in this United midfield right now than what Ugarte's doing. For me, in terms of build-up anyway, especially, Ugarte, I just don't know whether he's good enough. And again, I will say, of course, that personnel issue for Amorim is a huge problem. And I'm a huge advocate of getting a controlling, ball-playing midfielder in the summer. For me, it's almost higher on the priority list than a striker is. But to not expect Amorim to also do better as well with what he have, I think you also have to call that out as well. If we are going to throw money at Amorim this summer, and obviously task him with rebuilding this squad, which I really hope he can do, but if we're going to go back and match in the top elites of Europe, the system has to be better. We have to find ways of getting the ball into that midfield a lot better. You can't just be forced out wide so easily, forced to kick it long. That's not what the best teams in Europe are doing. You can do that sometimes. That is a solution, playing over the press. But to do that every single time, I don't know whether that works. So I do think there's a bit of both. Personnel needs to be better. Amorim, for me, there's areas where he can be better, definitely. Signs of improvement, especially I do think over the last couple of months. But there are improvements to be made. That's all I'm saying in this video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, guys, please drop her a like. Subscribe if you're new around here as well. Means a lot. And I'll catch you in the next one.